PDP lawmakers are not the only ones not impressed by the postponement of the resumption date for lawmakers. The Executive Director, Friends in the Gap Initiative, Mr. George Orji, speaks more on this issue.
On June 9, the National Assembly was inaugurated. The only business of the day was to elect the presiding officers. That they did and adjourned to the next day. The next day when they came, in the Senate, they swore in the senators who were not there the previous day. The same thing in the House. The next day, they adjourned to resume on June 23rd. What we heard was that the essence of that first break was to enable the bureaucracy of the National Assembly sort out the issue of office accommodation for the lawmakers and other logistics. They came back on June 23rd. They sat for 3 days. What did they achieve? They were bickering over the position of principal officers. If you recall, in the House, they fought on June 25th. It was a free-for-all fight. Then they now adjourned to resume on July 21st. No excuse, no explanation. But by Friday, July 18, there was a circular, announcing an adjournment till July 2028. There was no explanation, but the information I had was one that came from one of the senators, Senator Gavel Marafa. He said that they needed the adjournment because Mr. President was out of the country. He was visiting the U.S. And I sat back, I shook my head. I said, let me believe that the distinguished senator was quoted out of context. Otherwise, it would have been unfortunate to have such an explanation from a sitting senator. Friends in the Gap Advocacy Initiative, we issued a statement condemning these frequent adjournments. As we speak, we're almost doing 2 months. Nothing achieved by our own estimation. In real terms, nothing has been achieved apart from the bickering for political office, for self-interest. The point we're making is that the lawmakers should quickly sort out the issue of the political office and how they share it, and then sit down for serious legislative work. Nigerians voted for change. The change is not just for executive, it's for the lawmakers. In fact, the lawmakers are a key component to the change initiative Nigerians are talking about. So we cannot afford this unnecessary waste of time and resources of Nigerians for selfish reasons.
So even so, a situation on Tuesday, the day the National Assembly was supposed to resume, that's Tuesday, July 21st, the PDP caucus in the House of Representatives also expressed their dismay over the postponement of the resumption date to 28, and they said that they would not tolerate any further postponement from July 28, that they were sacrosanct.
Exactly. Particularly if you consider the amount of Nigerian payers' resources that were wasting on these lawmakers. You can't but think along the same line with the PDP. I commend them. Indeed, I commend them for that. As we're talking, they have paid the lawmakers for June. Before this week runs out, they get alert for their July salary. And as we speak, they have paid them the first tranche of their first quarter allocation. And this money is running into millions of naira. There has to be value for money. That's the point we're making. For crying out loud, Constitution Section 63 says that in the minimum, the lawmakers should sit for 181 days in a legislative year. And what is their legislative year? Their legislative from June to June. If the lawmakers resume by 28th of July, one or two things will happen. They might just sit for 1 week and then proceed on their annual 6-week long vacation. And that will take them to the end of September or first week of October. And we will have lost 4 months. What does that tell you? Indeed, because of what is going on now, there's been this agitation that we should revisit the issue of part-time legislation, okay, which Nigerians have been calling for. The issue came up during the last national conference. I think they adopted a resolution to that effect. Adopted a resolution to the effect that they should collapse the two arms of the National Assembly into one. Well, as part of drawing down, reducing the cost of governance. Okay? Even during the last constitutional amendment process, the issue came up. But expectedly, lawmakers didn't go there. They avoided it because it was going to affect them. And incidentally, they are the only ones that can change this constitutional provision. That is where we are today. Like I said earlier, this is not the change Nigerians voted for.
Still on the matter of the postponement, the PDP caucus, I know it was Representative Liu Ogo who was the spokesman who spoke at the end of the meeting, and he said the postponement is as a result of the inability of the APC leadership in the APC lawmakers to resolve the crisis in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. As we speak, some lawmakers in the House of Representatives have taken the Speaker Dogara to court, so they have not been able to resolve this crisis.
When Friends in the Gap issued a statement which came out yesterday, July 22nd, there were several reactions. One lawmaker from Plateau State, Honorable Timothy Golue, he did a personal post to my mail. He said, "George, what would you rather, that we come back and continue to quarrel and make ourselves laughing stock before Nigerians, or we stay a little longer and sort out our problems?" I said, no, that is even begging the issue. If you have problems, it shouldn't affect your responsibility as elected member. Find a way and sort your problem. It's your personal interest. It should take back seat, whereas national interest, comes up. That reminds me, the issue is, how do you resolve the crisis in the National Assembly? If you ask me, Friends in the Gap, we have issued a statement. What was our suggestion? We suggested that the problem should be left to the lawmakers to resolve. Why the problem has lingered so long is because of interference
from the political
parties and the political chieftains. This is an issue that is squarely meant for the lawmakers to resolve. And once you do that, the House has proposed that if they can't resolve it, we'll go on the floor of the House and do election, which is more honorable. In the Senate, they're almost at the point of resolving it, apart from the position of the chief whip, which hasn't been filled, but which has already been, zoned out, and the person to occupy the office is almost known to all of us. So the earlier the lawmakers resolve those problems and get back to business, the better for Nigerians.
Now, even as the issue of the who gets what, particularly in the House of Representatives, we also seen in the last few weeks this issue about, I don't know what's called, the amendment of the Senate standing rules of a section which was, that has caused a lot of controversy and discourse in the polity. Who amended it? Some say it was the 7th Senate did not do any amendment. It's the bureaucrats. What are your thoughts about this?
Okay, I've been privileged to speak to a number of senators. And let me tell you that the Senate Standing Order 2011, Order 110, spells out clearly how to amend this document. And if you go through it, there's no provision for the bureaucracy to get involved, bureaucracy of the National Assembly to get involved in it. It's clear. The process for the amendment is like a normal bill. The only difference is that it doesn't get to third stage where you call for public hearing. It says if any senator has, wants to any part of this rule to be amended, he should approach the Senate President and then write out the sections he wants to be amended. The man will look at it and they will direct the Senate Committee on Rules and Business to put it in the other paper. He distributes the amendment, proposed amendment to members. He's given an opportunity to make a presentation on that. The Senate President puts it to vote. Those who like an amendment to take place, they vote. By voice vote, he gets a simple majority. He says, okay, he now goes back and put it again in the other paper. At the day, he will now, the mover of that amendment will now have opportunity to present it again other members will now make contributions to it. After a very exhaustive session, then he put it to vote. Now he will require a two-thirds majority to pass it. Once he does that, the amendment is reflected here. That is the procedure adopted by this document. There was no place a mention was made about the clerk of the National Assembly or the clerk of the Senate. But I've heard another argument that says that on June 6, the 7th Senate, the tenure of the 7th Senate terminated. Then June 9, 8th Senate began. In between June 6 and June 9, in the face of the law, there was no Senate.
There was no National Assembly.
There was no National Assembly, because we are talking about the Senate now. What that means is that the bureaucracy takes over the Senate between June 6 and June 9. What they do within those 3 days is at their own discretion. Unfortunately, the rule does not factor that vacuum, that lacuna. I think that is what is causing all of this problem.
Going forward, so how do you think this issue is going to be resolved? Through the courts? I know the police has been involved in this, and it's even being said that it's a forgery case. So how will this issue be resolved?
I think it is wrong to expose the parliament unduly to the executive. All of those petition and legal issues is exposing the parliament to the executive. That's what it means. And I tell you, there's not much the police is going to do. And from my experience in the National Assembly, the lawmakers will not respond to any police invitation, and I doubt whether they have. At the end of the day, they will be the ones that will sit down and resolve whatever differences there are. Even the legal option has to be referred back to the lawmakers themselves. The parliament is a separate arm of government, it's independent on its own. And they wouldn't want a situation that will expose them to the manipulation of any of the arms of the government. What I think is that by the time the lawmakers resume on July 28,
if they will resume on July 28,
let us give them the benefit of the doubt. They will. By the time they resume, all of these issues will be resolved on the floor of the parliament.
But there was another interesting amendment, that is the sharing of the chairmanship, of the committees. We know that before now, it has always been a situation of winner takes all. The ruling party, the Senate president, is at his discretion to share the committees, as it chooses. Usually, 2 committees are given to the opposition. Now we're seeing an amendment where the committee chairmanship should be shared equally among geopolitical zones. What are your thoughts about this?
Again, you see why I get back to the position of Friends in the Gap. This matter has to be resolved by the lawmakers. But as we speak, when the controversy erupted, Friends in the Gap, we made our investigation. We got up to the clerk of Senior Committee on Business and Rules. What we found out was that the Senate Standing Order 2015 that was printed, they printed only 109 copies. So as we speak, you can only have access to it if you know any of the senators.
Yeah, true, because I know I had gone to the ethics to try to get a copy of this, and it was not available.
Exactly. Because ideally, it is that committee that handles the printing and distribution of the document. But as we speak, I don't think even the chairman of that committee, the clerk of that committee, has a copy. Okay, what did that tell us? What does it tell us? One, it's either we had an access to a copy that is owned by a senator, or we are just guessing. But concerning the new provision, okay, for me, it goes back to the point Deputy Senate President was making. Let us receive this document. If anybody has any any objection to any part of it, raise it, then we'll discuss it. But regarding the distribution of committees, naturally, I will go for the new amendment. Why? Because it goes to emphasize the principle of federal character. If the now says that you have to distribute the chairmanship of the committees across the 6 geographies, I think it's a welcome part of the change. Okay, it's not going to be like winner takes all that we used to have in the past. If you consider a zone like the Southeast or South-South that didn't vote massively for the ruling APC, then this new rule would have taken them into recognition. I understand how APC lawmakers feel, because they've been in opposition for 16 years. They have suffered a lot of advantages, and naturally they want to appropriate all the advantages that go with being a majority party. So it goes back to what we said initially. The lawmakers will have to sit down, discuss these things, and determine a way forward for themselves.